India's logistics and supply chain industry is experiencing a major transformation. The 11th edition of the ET Now Supply Chain Management and Logistics Summit 2024 delves deeper into the world of SCM and logistics. A flagship event that brings supply chain experts together was held recently in the national capital.
Why a leader is a good logistician is because of the challenges that he or she meets, and that's what gives rise to the term resilience. Now, when we take a look at the theme for this summit, the very first word, that is resilience, I think a morning like this, or for that matter, a day like this, is a true testimony to what we're witnessing with regard to resilience. But that being said, you'll all agree with me when I say that logistics indeed will be the fastest driver of the vehicle towards Viksit Bharat, which is why we also have a very befitting term around reforms and, of course, leading it to results. And this is where we'd like to focus on innovations driving efficiency and sustainability. And we're about to do that with some amazing panel discussions, some amazing presentations. Basically, we'll all get to hear from the thought leaders and industry captains on this amazing day when we get together and pave the way forward for India, for ourselves, for the entire industry.
The event was flagged off by Ram Praveen Swaminathan, MD and CEO Mahindra Logistics.
And in some ways, the focus on risk though has not come down, right? So people are very concerned about how to manage risk. I think every business leader still remains very focused on that. So it's a very challenging environment. Some things have not changed, right? Global uncertainty remains strong. Demand patterns still remain very inconsistent. Inflation and cost pressures still remain strong. All companies are trying to manage risk, and yet some things have gone back to the pre-COVID world. In the terms of, the focus on cost has become stronger. I think in the middle of the pandemic, there was a bigger focus on the cost to win. I think we've come back towards a greater focus on cost to serve. So I think that's been an increasing challenge. Somewhere in the middle of all this, I think sustainability has become a larger discussion. A discussion which I think everybody's still trying to figure out how much money to put on it, right? But sustainability has become a very active conversation as we deal with supply chains across different end markets and segments. So a period of a lot of change, and I think it's not an easy place to be in. As I think all of us in the industry try to respond to really four big things. How will we manage costs? How do we manage changing customer expectations in a very volatile environment? And how do we manage risk and keep supply chains resilient? And in many ways, I think the answer remains how we innovate across our supply chains. How do we actually drive innovation across the entire ecosystem is going to become more important than ever before. Unfortunately or fortunately, we are still a very physical business. Right? We're still not Star Trek days. We are not going to say, beam me up, Scotty, and a box is not going to evaporate and reach somewhere else. It's still going to be a very physical industry, and therefore it's not so much always about doing different things. It's actually about doing things differently. And it's going to be important for all of us to drive innovation across the way we work. And there are 3-4 areas where I think we clearly see that pattern, things which I know we are working on in our company. I think the first one is technology. Technology, I think, is moving rapidly. It's moving away in the last 24 months from things which are talking about 2 years ago. Today, I think Gen AI is a much bigger thing. It has significant potential for us in terms of our ability to kind of include multiple variables into the way we simulate things, to do advanced analytics, to do much better scenario planning, and has a significant impact on the way we optimize supply chains as well as drive customer experience across the board. In the second big area of innovation, which I think is emerging, and we see that, is a greater desire to integrate services. Right, and it's a significant shift. I think supply chains generally have worked in silos. I know at least in logistics, we are seeing this increasing trend as customers try to balance risk to actually start saying, how can we work with partners and how can we integrate the supply chain a lot more? I think it does reduce risk. It allows building line of sight across your entire supply chain, of course, makes it more resilient. And technology is a very big part of driving that change towards reducing your total cost of ownership.
Delving into deeper thoughts of supply chain management, we had a one-to-one interview with Ram Praveen Swaminathan, MD and CEO Mahindra Logistics.
Welcome to ET Now Supply Chain Management and Logistics Summit. Today we have with us Ram Praveen Swaminathan, MD and CEO of Mahindra Logistics. Hello Ram, welcome to the show. Ram, what are some of the key factors that are driving delivery logistics within the retail space?
So I think the delivery in the retail space is broadly evolving very rapidly, and three secular trends, though, I think persist. The first one is, delivery is having to adjust to a very omni-channel demand pattern. We are no longer looking at, individual supply chains flowing out to customers. Whether it's now you have general trade, you have online trade, you have modern trade, and the pace at which demand sensing moves across these channels is very fast. And so you have to adjust your delivery dynamics to that. And the second one is just the rise of quick commerce as a format which started off with a very narrow set of selections, but now is widening. And if you see, we were finding wider set of retail categories on that. And that means that one has to not only use the delivery in the quick commerce way, but you also have to manage a broader fulfillment supply chain to empower that model of delivery. And the third one is sustainability. Most of our customers, 40% of their spend actually is in that delivery in the last mile to channel or to end customer. And there is a significant amount of pressure to make that part of that supply chain a lot more sustainable. We see that as an opportunity rather than a threat, but it is a clear dynamic which is shifting. There are companies with the e-com marketplaces, or whether there are companies like IKEA and furniture, which are actually making a strong shift towards greening that end of the supply chain.
You spoke about e-commerce. How's the rise in e-commerce? How's that influenced your supply chain and logistics strategy?
So I think for us as a company, 4 years ago, we were largely, the two supply chains typically are two parts: inbound to manufacturing and then fulfillment, right? And e-commerce typically is a different way of fulfilling customers. Historically, our supply chain operations and our logistics operations were designed mostly for conventional brick and mortar companies. You send into a distributor space, distributor sent to a retailer, right? And e-commerce obviously has changed that quite a bit. To us, it's meant three things. It's first meant that we've had to expand our offerings. So we've actually now become a company which has full truckload, part truckload, right? Some air express capabilities. So our range of offerings have improved. The second is the size of our network has increased substantially. We are now at deliver to around 19,000 pin codes in the country. We have more than 1,000 operating locations, and that's an investment we've had to make substantially. And the third part where we've had a change really has been around technology. We had to invest a lot more into our technology in terms of inventory management, in terms of routing our fleets appropriately, move to multimodal fleets. We have four-wheelers, we have three-wheelers, we have two-wheelers. So the breadth of that and the technology enablement of that supply chain has changed substantially for MLL compared to what we were 4 or 5 years ago.
You spoke about technology. Today the consumer is becoming more tech savvy. They want, more for less. So how are you addressing the changing consumer behavior also?
So the technology is two parts. Obviously, there is a customer experience piece, right? And then there is a supply chain empowerment piece, right? The first one is really around how the customers experience their buying process. The second one is really around how well we optimize the delivery mechanisms for time, cost, quality, right? We largely serve B2B businesses, so we're not really an in-service provider to B2C customers. Our technology investments have been a lot more in terms of optimizing that supply chain a lot more effectively. And really three broad dimensions: quality of service, TAT time, right, and visualization of delivery parameters for performance, right? So we have invested in tech. Our customers therefore can see where our fleets are, how they're operating, how well, what their locations are, how they're delivering. Right? They obviously can now, we are using technology a lot more in the way we route our fleets, so we can actually reduce our TAT times and our delivery times substantially. And of course, we're just visualizing the end-to-end supply chain. We have now built out an ecosystem which integrates everything from cross-border logistics and warehouse management to transportation operations, which we do, and allows our customers to kind of visualize an entire supply chain, right? And also look at even things like the carbon footprint of that supply chain on a daily basis. So that's kind of how we are trying to mold it, because we are trying to make the supply chain more productive for our customers. Ultimately, that's kind of, our holy grail is making the supply chain far more productive, so the return on investment gets better, right? And that allows them to scale their businesses and grow them a lot faster.
Speaking about technology, today AI is present in almost every sector, every field. How are you using AI to address last mile connectivity to better your logistics?
So I think there is obviously, I'd say Gen AI especially, there's a little bit of AI which has been around for a while, but I think Gen AI obviously allows you to do multiple things, from scenario planning, advanced analytics, just allows you to put more variables into your planning process. I think we are still fairly early in the journey, right? I think what we really been investing more is in driving better customer experience, our own customers, and their ability to interact better with us. Use more AI in general in terms of our complaint management systems, so we can speed the quality of the resolution of customers. And we've been using a little bit more of AI in the way and machine learning in the way we manage our fleets and our operations. I think it's still very early days, because it's, when it comes to AI, models and technologies evolving at such a rapid pace that we are still kind of figuring out what else we can do, right? In that sense, I would say we are still early in the journey, but we are actively using it in the way we deliver products to our customers, the way they experience us, and the way we really drive that down for them, right? Which is very important. So today, for example, if I inclement weather in a place, how do you actually find alternate routes? How do you restate your delivery times? How do you manage for all those variables? That becomes a lot more easier with when you have AI or Gen AI actually embedded into your systems.
Ram, the last few years have seen disruptions in a lot of ways, be it geopolitical or technology. How and what your company is doing to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to logistics in retail?
I think it's a great question, and change is inevitable. I think the only choice we have is our response, right? It's how we respond, which is the choice, and therefore I think we are transforming all the time. What we used to make change, we used to change our business model once in 2-3 years, and now we're doing it every year, reorganizing, investing in new systems, and therefore I think it's a continuing process today. To me, the largest shift is the mind shift. While there's a lot of time which is consumed in what tech stack we choose, how do we embed into a service. I think the real question is, do we have a mind shift which looks at change as something you harness, as opposed to something you defend. And therefore, we are trying to make the investment in building a newer set of leaders in the company who think digital first, who think about how to actually leverage technology in the way they design and think about their business, as opposed to reacting, saying that, there's a Gen AI, so now how do I use it? There's an email which comes from a customer or the CEO of the company saying that, why are we not doing this? We're trying to, and to me, that's a big shift we're trying to make in the company. There's obviously a lot of stuff we're doing at a tech stack layer, at a physical layer to empower that. But the mind is the first and the biggest part of the change we have to sustain.
The global supply chains, they're becoming more dynamic, more complex, with time. What are some of the key opportunities and challenges that you see emerging in the next decade?
I think it's very hard to predict. Very honestly, if you could predict that, we'd probably be in a very different place today. But there are a few things which I think are important. I think first, for us, it always begins with the customer. So as we look at cross-border supply chains, which I think are reality today, whether it is China +1, whether it's India, whatever you call it. So I think the question we are trying to first do is saying that I think there's a big opportunity to help customers visualize the supply chain door to door, right? And actively visualize it. So if there is a crisis, if there's a blank ceiling, if there's a delay, how you're actually able to visualize and integrate into a customer's manufacturing planning and supply chain planning. I think that's a huge opportunity which is there. I think the second one is actually driving more value-added services, right? How do you add more value to a client so we can actually debottleneck the multiple handoffs they are dealing with, which we think is a big opportunity. And the third one is how do you actually build stability through consolidation. That's something which we are working on actively. So for example, I have 50 customers coming in, moving in volume from Mexico to India or from China to India. Each of their volumes might move actively every week and every month, but the question is, can I actually build natural hedging within them by driving better consolidation using technology? Those are three opportunities we as a logistics company see is quite active, and both leveraging our domestic business and our cross-border logistics businesses. We're trying to kind of strengthen and innovate on our offerings in those three areas.
When we talk about green ecosystem within logistics, what are some of the sustainable supply chain strategies or initiatives that you have employed in your organization?
So I think it's a fascinating question, and I think it's a very easy question to answer and a very difficult question to answer. The easy part is what we're doing inside the fence, what we call Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. There we, I think as a company, have focused on three things, decarbonizing our transportation supply chain, investing in renewable infrastructure, and driving more circularity in our systems. And we are committed to making our Scope 1 and Scope 2 carbon neutral by 2040, and we are kind of well on our way, at least we think so. We've got 40% of our warehousing now is renewably powered, right? It's all IGBC or LEED Platinum certified. More than a third of our last mile delivery is actually electric today, and it's increasing quite significantly and very rapidly. Right, we are piloting on the first mile of the line hauls alternate fuels. So I think that's something which we have a lot more visibility on. We're using technology a lot to actually optimize things like cut down the number of kilometers you operate, so actually burning lesser fuel. So that's something which I think is one part of our story. But the larger part, I think, which requires attention is how do you help customers make the transition? Because ultimately, we serve customers and their supply chains, and so a big part of our increasing investment now is partnering with our clients, so we can actually help them have a really good dialogue around making their business more sustainable. So, for example, we have now developed our own in-house platform where a customer we've got 1,200 customers on it, and a customer can log in and actually see by package, by route, what is the carbon footprint of that package or the truck which has traveled. And then that starts off the dialogue with the customer saying, if you want to decarbonize your business, so your supply chain, by 25-30%, what do I need to do to enable that? I think empowering customers, I think, is very important to drive their transition, because for us, we can never be successful unless they are successful. Right? And that's a big part of what we are focusing on, and I think you will see a lot more investments from Mahindra Logistics in the space of investing in the ecosystem rather than investing in ourselves.
Mahindra Logistics is one of the top players in the industry. As a person heading it, if I were to ask you, what is your leadership style? How would you describe it? What would you say?
Hustle. Hustle is the simplest way. I think, obviously, I think all of us our sector is it's a high transaction volume, right, low latency sector. So obviously there are, I think you can't just follow one leadership model. So this part of it obviously is transformative because our sector is changing quite a bit, and one has to play the long ball on the sector and think about what the company will be 5 or 6 years from now and what might happen there. But at the same time, we are also very much a custom industry, which is today and now, right? If you order something and if we are supposed to deliver it in 45 minutes, and if you don't deliver it, you're going to actually probably start canceling the order, right? Or our customers are going to cancel it on our customers, and there are liabilities and penalties we have to meet. So I think as a leader, I think what we're trying to do is build an organization which has hustle, and then layer that with a longer term transformational view. It is ultimately a people's business. We can talk about technology and systems and everything else, but ultimately, the only two things which matter in our business are customers and our employees. The more we can empower them to be successful in the last mile, the more we will be successful as a company. And therefore, as a leader, that takes a disproportionate amount of my time.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
The event was followed with an intriguing CEO panel discussion on the topic of logistics renaissance, tech, sustainability, resilience unleashed.
You have been also interacting with the industry bodies a lot. The cost of doing business, we are every day talking how do we do more with less. And logistic cost in our country has always been a bit higher than the normal, world standard. Where do you think, government need to move to enable, this ecosystem in this room to really make the whole cost of doing business much more better and palatable, to really, pass on that benefit to the end customer, because the end customer also wants the best of the stuff at the least of the cost. So any reflection on that?
I think logistics cost in India is an interesting subject, which I am biased because I'm in the industry. But I think in general, it's not that the purchase price of logistics in India is high. In fact, you could argue that the price which customers actually pay for logistics services in India is quite low, given the profitability of the industry as a whole. The challenge, I think, is the cost below the iceberg. On the top of the iceberg, the below the iceberg cost, which is cost of inefficiency, it's the inventory you carry, it's the returns you manage, right? It's all those inefficiencies in the system between trade-offs across your supply chain, which actually adds hidden cost to you. And that's where I think the 12 to 14% number, which is often referred to, I think, across the world, across various industry bodies, comes in. I think where we stand today, I think the National Logistics Policy and the Gati Shakti program, I think for a large part actually recognize many of the challenges. I think the cognizance of the issues, I think, is very strong. I think infrastructure and digitization is actually making a lot of progress. And I think as that happens, there is going to be more access to information. The reliability of services is going to improve. I think, Abhishek can talk about it a little bit more as well. It's something she and I probably deal with every day. Just getting your vehicles on time, getting warehouses opening properly. So as infrastructure quality improves, the reliability and the dependability of services will improve. And I think those things are already underway. So I think in that sense, there are the ability to create dependable services through better infrastructure, the ability to integrate services through better availability of information. I think those are actually well underway. I think the challenge is, can the government help do it faster, right? Can it just make it a lot faster, and can it reduce the bureaucracy in it a lot faster? Because they still have, while I think there's still a lot of intent for left hand and right hand to talk well, I think there is still a lot of operating challenges given the federal structure of our country to actually translate intent into actions. I think that's something which I think does require a lot of progress.
The event was followed by a guest of honor address by Bhupati Raju Srinivas Verma, Minister of State for Heavy Industries and Steel, Government of India.
I am delighted to be here at the 2024 ET Supply Chain Management and Logistics Summit. This is the 11th edition of the summit, and it's an honor to speak to such a distinguished group of industry leaders, policymakers, and experts who drive the growth of the supply chain and logistics industry. This industry is undeniably a major force behind India's economic progress, and my ministry is also a major beneficiary from the advancements made in the supply chain sector. India has one of the largest reserves of natural resources, almost 10% of the world's iron ore reserves, and a fifth of the global coal reserves. However, creating a logistical value chain around our resources has always been a challenge.
The 11th edition of ET Now Supply Chain Management and Logistics Summit 2024 culminated on high-voltage discussions, pride, and a sense of achievement. Though the curtains came down, but the search for excellence by the Times Group will go on.